Hi. Okay, I'm here today to talk to you about grief, and in this case, grief to do with the loss of a loved one. And I'm hoping to encourage people to seek help and that this video would be a benefit to some people, that they might be able to relate and have a sense of understanding. And with that, I will try to cover some areas as well as explain some of the journey and how it's impacted some of my family members and how you can try to move forward. Um, Over time, I've lost loved ones, and it started when I was my first experience with that was a grandparent, and so I was a teenager and really lacking in understanding. The subject matter didn't come up, it wasn't discussed, and so I attended a funeral and continued on living my life. I knew it was really sad and sorrowful and very uncomfortable, so I took a direction that prompted me to ignore anything to do with death. In which case, as I got older, I became very fearful. And the topic, when it came up, I avoided it. I actually rejected any conversation around it. And I lived in a state of fear. So, um, not understanding and not getting educated and not being able to open up with my feelings, I developed some phobias and probably some illnesses concerning anything to do with it, uh, living in a state of fear. So, with that, I am going to get on with the journey. And I would like to say at this time that I am writing a book. I'm in the midst of writing a book. I have tried to tackle this by making notes, picking a title, doing an introduction, but I haven't been that successful at sticking with it and staying with it, using whatever excuses or avoidance techniques to not accomplish it. But it is my goal to accomplish that task. And with that, I'll start out by telling you the title of my book, which is Riding the Waves Without Drowning. And in writing that book, I'd like to dedicate it to my daughter Rebecca, my grandchildren Dallas, Megan, and Matthew, to my mother Faye Nelson, and my sister Melanie Nelson, as well as my brothers Brian, Dean, David, and Eugene. I also would like to mention a couple of girlfriends that have passed that were very close to me, and as well as their children, and they also have experienced some excruciating pain. I also live with a fellow that has experienced death and the loss of loved ones and comrades and parents and so on and so forth throughout time. And throughout this last couple of years, him and I talking has given me the courage to even attempt making a video like this. I'm doing the video, but I am also writing the book in honor of my son, Jamie Clifton, who is the person that I would like to talk the most about, the experienced. And I would also like to mention my dad, who I lost him at my age of 29, which is the same age that my son was when he passed away. All these experiences leave you with scars that are not healed. Well, scars are scars. It's the wounds that are not healed, and without any kind of talking about it or working through things, it's quite debilitating. So, in that, I'm hoping that this will help people, but it will also be a healing process for myself. And when my family views it, it will also give them the time to look at it and ask themselves where they are stuck and what avenues they can take to start doing some healing themselves. So, anyway, with that, the journey began in 2001, May, which was Mother's Day weekend. And we always have great celebrations within the family and made a big fuss over birthdays and Christmases, Easters, and so on and so forth. So sometimes we blew it out of proportion. Sometimes we just used it as an excuse to celebrate and be together, which was just a really great experience. So at that time, um, Jamie was staying with me, and I had recently made a move, and so my life was changing drastically at the time, and I was trying to settle into a relatively new relationship, but very, very close to my grandchildren and family. So right around that time, I was starting to have some really uneasy feelings, and they were almost like messages that were being given to me and alerting me, which I took on as premonitions. And prior to the accident, I had actually experienced a time when I was by myself when I had a very, very strong sense that one of my children was going to be leaving this planet. And I just didn't know how to identify, or it came and went so quickly. I wasn't sure. Was it my son or was it my daughter? But I knew it was one of them. So, anyway, the following week, my son had worked and he had gone out and carried on like any 29-year-old. And I was waiting for him at home to come back and pay his room and board and spend some time with them when he didn't show up, which was unusual. But anxiety took over, and I learned later that my daughter was experiencing some of the same feelings. And the previous week, she'd also had a lot of anxiety and not really knowing what it was about, but she felt that it was concerning her brother. So, anyway, at 20 to 3 in the morning, after he hadn't arrived home and I had gone to bed, I was awakened by the police to tell me that there'd been an accident and that he was on life support in Chilliwack Hospital. So right away, when they were explaining circumstances, I obviously was immediately in a shocked state, and I assumed that he was still alive, and the best thing to do would be to get there. And but I also had the sense to call my daughter, which I only attempted once or twice, and I couldn't reach her. But I was in a hurry, and I was thinking that, well, if I get to the hospital in time, um, he'll see me and hear me, and he will make it through this. I knew it was a serious accident. I just hadn't received the information that the police officer had given at the time. So I was under the impression that he was still alive and that he was going to be okay. So off we went to the hospital, and on my way there, I had gotten a hold of my brother and asked him to come along. So he did that, and we arrived at the hospital to find my son on life support. And I was there waiting to go in, thinking that he's on life support, but he's still with me, and he's going to be okay. That was not true, and that was a falsehood. And all of the things that were leading up to it were preparing me for the tragedy that was about to ensue. Anyway, he required to be taken off life support because there wasn't going to be any donation of organs, and he had suffered brain damage. He had died instantly from a blow to his head, and had apparently died instantly. So, upon entering that room with him, I saw him in a state that I was comfortable with, and visualized him just the way I needed to, which was a protection for me. So I spent a very short amount of time because I somehow, as a mother, sensed that I needed to give him the dignity he deserved, and I wanted to remove him from life support and allow him to go in peace. And those were the very things that I needed to say to him. I was so absorbed with just that I couldn't focus on my daughter or anybody else. Nobody else was in my world, just him and I at that time. So I proceeded with what I thought was necessary and responsible, and and still in trying to protect him and in turn myself. So with that, the doctors they took him off life support, and that was that. I still to this day see that same picture that I saw then, and thank goodness I was able to get my mind to work in my favor for that. So I knew that I was now on a journey, and I was like in slow motion, but I was a mother, and I needed to contact my daughter and my family and talk to other people and start preparing for a brand new way of life, which at the time I couldn't think that far ahead. In contacting my daughter, finally, when I got back to where I was living and going to her dwelling to let her know, it was all done in a very calm manner. It was almost like I was outside of myself and not feeling. I was delivering messages, but I wasn't able to feel the emotion that you would expect. So shock does that for you. It's a protector. It's a great protector. Anyway, we were beginning a journey now that was life altering and tragic and very very painful. And so with that, um, your life changes, and everybody's life that he had touched and had been a part of was now going to experience some major hurdles. And with that, here we go in 2001, spring, uh, a new journey. Face your demons and get on with things is what you tell yourself. So now we have a time in our life where we're wanting to have a celebration of his life and honor him in the best way possible, and these things all happen on short notice. So your family, my family, banded together, and I want to say now that I don't know if I ever thanked my daughter for her abilities and the strength that she managed to pull from well within herself and confront and organize and make arrangements that I was now not having to do, because I had an adult daughter that decided that she was going to step up and do this kind of a service for her brother. They were very, very close, and she felt like this was something that she needed to do and wanted to do, and it was her responsibility and her love for him that she would be able to carry this off as to the best of her ability. So she probably feels like I've thanked her over time, but I don't know if I actually said those words, thank you for doing and being the person that you were at the time of your brother's death, being that this was a huge challenge and it was going to be life altering for you, Rebecca. Um, it was fantastic, and nothing ever goes perfectly or the way we plan. It goes the way that somebody else has in mind for us, and that's exactly what happened. We had a nice celebration and a cremation, which is what he wanted, and I know that because he and I had had a conversation a couple of weeks prior to his passing about what was would happen for him at the end of his life, and it was due to me reading a book and deciding that at that time I needed to let him know that I would choose that for myself and that he should know that, and so that he could tell his sister that at the time if it ever arose. And I just wanted to have the comfort of knowing that he knew that. So I opened the conversation, and at the time he was watching a hockey game, and he stopped and he listened and he said, yeah, I understand that, Mom. I agree. Great. That's good. I want that too. And then he said, move out of the way because I'm watching the hockey game, which was just like him. He was a pretty even keeled guy, and He didn't show a lot of emotion. He didn't seem shocked by the conversation. He wasn't upset. He wasn't laughing. He was matter of fact, and I took it from that. So I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to have that information and that it came straight from him. So anyway, we carried on and we did the best we could and had family band together and friends and people that were friends of Jamie's that had known him a long time, um, people that were very close to him, and they managed to get together music that he liked to listen to and jam with his buddy, and it turned out to be as good as a celebration of life can be, I guess. You try to make it as elegant and respectful and as honoring as you can to the person that you've lost, but in turn, you always think back and wish this and wish that and wishful thinking. But he was there and he was probably smiling down and saying, "Yeah, this is all okay," you know. But we tell ourselves the many stories that we want to believe, and being that I am a Christian and I believe in God, my faith helped me, and I took comfort in believing that he was now with the Lord and that one day again we would get a chance to be together. So I started to tell myself that story, and it's the story I tell myself today because it's the very thing that gives me the most comfort. Anyway, in my book title, Riding the Waves Without Drowning, I chose that as a title because when I experienced this particular loss in my child, I just felt like I was in an ocean. And oceans and water, I had all kinds of phobias as a growing up, and water and the ocean was one of them. It was so huge and vast, and it just seemed like there was never any answer. All you could see was miles and miles of waves and water. So I attributed this experience to that ocean with the small rippling waves and the medium waves, and when you're swimming, the mediocre waves and so on, and but this time it was a tsunami, and I decided that that would be a good title because the grief comes in waves, and you never know when you're kind of hit with a ripple or a medium wave or a tsunami. And so that explanation was really great for me in sorting out some of what I was feeling. And so for anybody else, if you want to use that as a description or explain how you might be feeling, you would attribute it to trying to get up on that surfboard and ride through and stay on top of those waves and use your anchors and your life-saving devices, which are your people and the loved ones around you, or whatever other things that you can hang on to continue to give you hope and wanting to carry on living. Because, as we all know, life is for the living, and we have to be able to get that into a perspective, and a good, proper perspective, so that we can continue to live for the people that are with us still. And that is, I believe, what our loved ones want. They never leave us with the idea that they want to inflict pain on us. And I believe that they would probably see that a lot of the things that we put ourselves through are unnecessary, because once we leave this planet, there's supposed to be wonderful, blissful joy and reunion and understanding, and to a depth that we have no way of grasping here on earth, except for our faith in the Lord and the goodness that comes along with that. So yeah. Anyway, I had a daughter, a beautiful daughter, and grandchildren, and I recognized quite quickly that I needed to carry on living my life, and a healthy life, the best I could do, because to not do that would invalidate everything about them as people that were so near and dear to me, and I very easily could have slid into a place and felt like it at some time, but I knew that it wasn't the answer, and I had guidance. I had guidance to help me through that. So if you're fortunate enough to have people together, and family members and friends, it only takes one close friend that can help pick you up. Sometimes it isn't your family, sometimes it's a stranger, sometimes it's somebody that can just make the difference by listening or having a kind word or something to support you in this journey. And you do get the help from all kinds of places. Uh, Nothing's carved in stone, and there's no right or wrong of it. There's no way that you can take this kind of an experience and map it out and say that this applies to all, because it touches us all. We are all going to face it. We all have faced it, and we're all going to be there ourselves. And we are going to pass on and leave people that love us. And that's just the reality of life. It sounds cold and hard, but it's the natural order of things. So our Maker, He designed it that way, and I take comfort in not challenging that. Um, Stages of grief. Well, there's five or there's seven. It depends on how you want to look at it. And I'm not going to get into every stage of grief right now, but at some point maybe I can go over that. I was hoping to put that in my book, and I think that most people are aware of that, but to have it explained in somebody else's terms sometimes is beneficial, and we don't have an order of grief. I think that they come and go in different forms and leave you with depression and anger and denial and all the fun stuff. But it's it's all there, part and parcel, and it some things and sometimes linger longer than others, and sometimes we can ward it off. But it's a journey that you're alone on, and you're not alone in people wise, but you're alone with your thoughts, and once all these decisions and celebrations of life and things are taken care of, now the real task is, are you a good swimmer? Can you get up on the board and stay up there when the waves are knocking you down? Because that's the key. That's looking to inner strength and your faith to help you with that. Now, some people don't follow a faith and they choose not to accept that, and that's everybody's right. It's just that I found this was my saving grace, and it worked for me, and it still works for me. So I believe that we all have to go through it, and it's 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 a long road. It's a long journey, and it's not fun. It's not fun. The only thing that can be fun about it is when you feel well enough to look back on your memories and begin to take pleasure and joy out of them, and actually recognize that it is that life that you're celebrating, and that life was never all about doom and gloom. And so in order to be honorable to the passing party, it's probably best if we could try and grab that, and know that they would appreciate us celebrating all their successes and their joys and their achievements and their funny times and their silly acts, and think of it in a kind and loving manner, and not turn it into an event that destroys us to the point of not wanting to move forward and love and try to be healthy. And yeah, we owe it to ourselves and to the people that are left in our lives to be able to love them and participate in their lives and share in their future and their present day and times of glorious events. And it's true. There's a season for everything. So we need to try and get to an understanding of that. And if we're not feeling well, we can give ourselves a respect and not feel well, but not stay stuck and not stay depressed. And easier said than done, because I know I spent many times not wanting to get dressed or showered, or didn't feel hungry or didn't want to eat, and I self-medicated, and I thought, well, if I just have some drinks, I'll be able to sleep. And you try all these things. Maybe you're overeating, you gain a lot of weight, your health takes a turn for the worst, because it will act, and it acts out in grief. Grief will take you down. It will ruin your health if you don't try to find ways to express what you're feeling, and find some comfort somewhere. And it doesn't happen overnight. There's no measure of time. Nobody's going to tell you that you'll feel better in a week or a month or 3 months or a year. And some people don't feel better in 10 and 15. They learn how to live with this, and they find places to put it, and they actually, that's what you do. You learn how to live around it. It doesn't go away. And anybody that you talk to that experiences it, they tell you it doesn't go away. Uh, Earlier today, I had woken up and I was thinking, I would really like to get on with this book writing that I've been procrastinating about and avoiding, like finding excuses not to write it, and questioning my own. It's not that I don't have the ability. I fully believe in my ability to achieve, and I usually get things done and accomplish them. But this is one thing that has stayed there as a challenge, and I haven't put enough effort into succeeding and doing it. But in making this video, it's, I think, going to be the actual push forward and the incentive that I'm needing. So, with that, today when I got up, I thought, what would be a really good idea is to make a video and talk on this subject, and maybe put it up and share it. And um, within about 30 minutes, I had received a text message from my daughter, and she had sent me a depiction of a body that was made out of stone and rocks and boulders, and the gender wasn't, you couldn't determine the gender, but it was all stones, and it was to signify grief. And I thought, wow, like, isn't that crazy? Like, how, that she would send me that, and she didn't know I was doing this video, and I didn't know that she was going to send me that. But I don't believe in coincidence, so it was quite remarkable, and I think that it really pushed me and gave me the incentive to make this video. And this is just the first part, because I'm hoping to continue with it and address some of the things that go along with losing a loved one. And it isn't just about emotion. It's such a life-altering thing. It changes finances, and it changes, well, sometimes you need to have a lawyer. There was a court case in our circumstances, and my son has a little girl, and there was many things to consider in a short period of time, so needed to be acted upon. And a higher power was there directing. I'm pretty sure of it, because it baffles me to think that anybody can pull themselves together and sort this stuff out. And yet people manage it. They get through it, and with their support, they manage, and they get through it, and they do the best they can with it. So anyway, there's lots of things to talk about in terms of what uh, you need to do when a person passes on, and the requirements and the moral obligations that you feel, and the emotions, and that some of that is settling financial things for that person, and making sure that their belongings go to the right people, and that you handle it the best way you know how. Some people build shrines, and some people need to do that, and like I said before, there's no right or wrong of it, and we don't have the right to criticize people for the way they choose to grieve. Um, with the cremation, my son was had an urn, and my daughter decided that she was going to take it, and she wanted to keep it, which went against my belief system. I wanted his ashes spread, but those were things that I believed were right, and they were maybe part in ritual, and um, maybe it was just part of my character in wanting to finalize everything, because I tend to want to finalize everything. Let's get to the bottom of it. Let's get it done. So with that, it was a teaching thing, and I needed to allow her as a sister to deal with her grief, and if that brought her comfort, I needed to learn in some way to be able to manage that and not take ownership. And so when I take issue with that at any time, I ask for the strength to help guide me through it and not be selfish about it, because these things affect all of us, and with ownership we can get confused about what we think our rights are. So I'm going to say and give you a little spiel on ownership as well, and pain, about people thinking that they suffer greater pain than the next person, or that was my son and I have more pain than you, and that was your grandson and you have more pain than me, and so on and so forth. And we don't have the right to do that and to invalidate people because they need validation in what that relationship was for them. So in my daughter's case, it was her brother, and they were very close. They grew up close. They experienced a lot of sadness together, and a lot of joy, and a lot of secrets, a lot of friends, a lot of nonsense. They managed to pull it off together, and it bonded them. They had a great time, and they had fights. They fought like brothers and sisters do and siblings do, but they were very, very close. So with that, I had to learn how to put my feelings into a place that was going to allow my daughter some validation for the great loss she was suffering. And at the time, the grandchildren were all born. They were here, and it changed their worlds greatly. Uh, Matthew, the grandson, was just a baby, but it altered his life because it altered the way people cared for him and viewed him and wanted to protect him, and the same for Megan, Jamie's daughter, and Dallas. So life altering for everybody, for sure. So yeah. Anyway, getting back to validating people's feelings about their experience in losing a loved one. We can't go off and start dictating to people how they should be feeling, because sometimes when we have strength and we're feeling better, other people are stuck in a place that they don't know how to explain it. And sometimes, rather than trying to say things to people for comfort, you need to just be quiet and listen and just be there, just be present. uh, a presence is better than nothing at all, and sometimes that's all that's required. I had an experience with somebody telling me 3 months into my son's death that I needed to move on with my life, and get busy and get serious about getting into the game. And I was devastated. I was full of rage and anger, and I really wanted to attack that person for saying that, but they had no experience with anything remotely close to that, and so they thought they were being kind and doing the right thing. But for me, it was not cool. And so it also taught me to be very careful when talking to other people when they're going through something similar. And yeah, it was definitely a teacher. So yeah, this experience in losing my son was a teacher, and it changed my life in so many ways. But it changed me in some really powerful good ways as well, because I soon began to take apart behavior and my own, and I learned to be less judgmental and more patient and more tolerant and more loving, more generous with my time and with my thoughts and with my opinions. And I discovered that I had a lot of growing up to do, and I didn't need to always be right or my way or the highway type attitude. So this was going to be a way of teaching me and sculpting me and leaving me, I'm hoping, to be a better person and to share with other people the love that I have and dedication and honor. And in learning those things and having to learn this way, I guess, was a good thing. I guess that if there's going to be anything good come out of it, I guess you could say that's it. And to take the time to realize that life is really precious. Which brings me to um, being really careful. And you can't go around walking on glass, because we're just people, and we do and we say and we behave in ways that are just human. But it gives me a chance to remind, still as a role model to my family, about how important it is and how we're talking to the people that we're surrounding ourselves with. And even though we're going to have times when we're annoyed or angry or things just are not going our way, we want to be careful that we're not name calling and being angry and leaving people, and not leaving them with thoughts that they're loved and valued, because it's really easy to walk out that door and in a rage and forget to say, like, hey, I'll be back and I love you. Right now you piss me off, but I'm okay, but I love you. And that's important. And we get caught up in human behavior, and it can be tragic for people. So my advice on that is um, to try and be careful about that. And I had to learn that too, because it was a lesson for me. So we're all here as teachers, and we're all here as students, and we're never too old and we're never too young. We have to we have to accept that. And it also taught me that I could learn from young people, and I could take direction, and I could see the sense of humor. I didn't understand the ways, the music, the many things, but I could open my mind. And so I guess in my son's passing, it taught me to be able to do some of those things, and I cherish that. Um, Guilt. I went through some major feelings of guilt, and guilt towards my daughter that was still alive and my grandchildren, and but to my son, because when I started to feel like I could laugh again or smile or enjoy something, I started to feel like maybe I don't have the right to do this. Like, why am I laughing? It's not a good thing to be doing. I mean, you've just lost your son. And I would talk myself into doom and gloom, and think, you know, getting these really crazy thoughts that I wasn't deserving of pleasure because I had lost my child. I actually said many times, like, I would have traded places. I would have given my life at any time so that he could live. But I don't have that right. And I didn't have that right to even barter in that manner, because I have a responsibility as a mother and a grandmother and a family member and a daughter and a sister and a girlfriend and all of the above, a friend, employee, and it wasn't my time. It was his time. And so that leads me to believe that he had completed his journey here on earth, and that it didn't take him as long to learn the things he needed to learn while he remained here. And when I think back on him, I really would like to attest to that, because he was a nice person. Don't get me wrong, he wasn't a saint, and he was a kid. He was a little boy first, and then he was rambunctious and carried on. He was quiet, but he found ways to burn off that energy and act out be a boy, and then he was an obnoxious teenager, and he could win you over with a smile, but he could be a jerk, and he could also be warm your heart in a minute just by looking at you and smiling. He had a great sense of humor, so I was able to have that for the 29 years he was here and enjoy it. And that is what made me realize that I didn't own him. He wasn't mine. I gave birth to him. I created him. I helped create him. And then he was on loan to me, which I believe that people are on loan to us. We don't own them. And we have no right to take ownership. And when something like this happens, we can't take ownership to their passing either and act like other people don't have a right to have their feelings and their views and their uh, help make decisions about what direction to go or what their needs are. And we need to be, hopefully, we can have a big enough heart that we can exercise that and allow that and not be so selfish, rather be selfless and move forward, and with that you're honoring your loved one that's passed before you. That's the biggest thing, is in honoring them and celebrating their life and allowing yourself the joy, because there was plenty of that. So it's not something we want to forget, and we don't want to stay stuck, but we have to give ourselves the time to be able to move forward and do that and be respectful. So yeah, it's a journey, and it's a never-ending journey. It's ongoing, and like you think a few years pass and you think, okay, I'm doing really good, and this doesn't seem as hard as it used to be, and then all of a sudden something comes up, and you're right back on to day one almost, and you're like, you it can you're just there, and you're there in a state of mind that you can't explain, and there's no use in trying to explain. You've got to learn how to accept it and allow yourself to have the feelings, and to cry if you need to, and to be angry if you need to, and to, you know, um, if you need help, to have the wisdom to know that you have to seek that help and get the encouragement and allow people to support you. There's no greater gift than allowing people to help you and support you. You don't want rejection, and neither do they. With that comes boundaries, and it's important that we respect boundaries, but we cannot reject people um, because we're in pain. Give ourselves time and make sure that we recognize that we're needed to be whole and healthy. That's why we're here. We're here. We have a job. We're here for a reason. We all have a purpose, and some of us have it figured out and some of us don't. The simplest things that we do are part of our purpose. So sometimes in losing a loved one, we get to a place where we learn to realize that material things and shiny new cars and big screen TVs don't bring us the happiness that we find in the people that we love and share and have been put in our lives. We don't pick our kids, and they don't get to pick their parents. That's the crazy thing. And I'm hoping that I can safely say that I would be, if they had to do it again and pick me, they would do that. That would be such a comforting thing. I'm pretty sure that there was times when both my kids felt like they didn't, they could have traded me in for a new model. I'm pretty sure of it. And that's okay. Yeah, we all feel like that. We all feel like that. Getting to children in grief, we also have to make room and acknowledge that when these experiences are happening, they need to be validated and listened to, and their behaviors will tell it. They don't know how to put it into words, and so they will show you, and they can't be ignored and not cared for or um, because we're in that state, it's important that we get the care for them that they need, and the outlets that are required for them to continue to be as healthy as they can. And if that's enlisting friends and family and sometimes outsiders, then we need to be able to provide that for them, because they're going through this too, and they've lost somebody as well, and they've also lost the closest person to them, if that's their grandmother or their mom or whoever, their dad or whoever it happens to be. They're there, and they're valuable, and they need to be heard, and they've experienced it. My grandson, like I said, has experienced losing his dad, and he's had to grow up, and he is growing up without his father, his biological father, and it's painful. And we don't sometimes want to talk about it or allow him to talk about it, because we have this fear that it's going to hurt. But if we open that door, that's what heals, and we allow them to heal. That's our goal. The same as my granddaughter. She has to have a place to be able to put these feelings about her dad that was not around to raise her. And she would like to be able to identify with him and understand that she looks like him, and she walks like him, and she sounds like him, and she laughs like him. Those are important things, and they're healing things. The same thing for Dallas. She's experienced having a termination of a pregnancy, and it devastated her, and even though she didn't carry that life and she wasn't able to get to the place that she wanted to be and carry full term, she experienced a loss that is absolutely tragic, and it's debilitating, and not opening the door for her and recognizing that she felt the pain the same way, feels the pain the same way, and the experience is troubling and confusing, and it causes anger and depression and fear. So, if we don't open the door up to these topics and allow people to express how they feel and not put a time frame on it, I mean, if it gets too long to depression, then people need to seek help, and we have a responsibility in helping them with that. And if we see that there's going to be injury or there's trauma and there's people not being able to move themselves along, then it's up to us as people to be able to do that. Give them the aid that they need, give them the ear they need, give them the hug they need, give them the space they need, and respect. Huge respect is required. So I can say that I am very, very grateful, and I have a lot of gratitude, not because I've lost my son, but because I have great people. I had great people in my life, and I still do, and I'm still living and experiencing joy, much joy. And I still meet challenges, and I still have to make decisions, and I still have to continue on living. And just because I've lost my son doesn't give me a ticket to ride and say that it's going to be easy street from here on in. That doesn't happen. That's not life. So, with that, I'm going to close this video by saying that I'm grateful for the people I have in my life. I'm blessed. I'm truly blessed. And I know that my son comes to see me. He leaves me little messages. He puts thoughts in my mind. I hear songs that he used to love. Uh, Reminders are here continuously, and they're here, and they come to us. They come to us, and they're meant for just us and the experience. So don't ever think that people are gone out of your life forever. And if you make room for that, you'll notice more and more of that happening. And coincidence it isn't. It's an actual experience, and we have them, we want to hold on to them, and we want to grasp onto them, and we want to do all kinds of crazy things that we think maybe we can get in touch with them, and psychics and mediums and you name it. But if we just are quiet with ourselves, we don't need to do that, because they're visiting us, and they're giving us their love, and they're sharing with us. And if we can talk about that openly without somebody thinking we're completely crazy, then it just helps us to be able to move forward and heal. And so I would like to pass that on and share that, and hope that my daughter and my grandchildren and my family members can come to that place and feel okay with it and know that it's a tool to use and it's a comfort. So I'll see you next time, and I hope this has helped.